After Spider-Man 2 the game showed everyone how fun it could be to be the wall-crawling, web-slinging hero in an open-world New York, all Spider-Man games that have followed have tried and failed to make the lightning strike twice. Following their mildly successful beat-em-up efforts, Studio Beenox tries their hand in The Amazing Spider-Man with an open world and rewrites Spider-Man 2's formula for better and for worse. As the game starts out with a drawn-out opening sequence, let's start with the story. Continuing where this summer's Amazing Spider-Man movie leaves off, the game follows Spider-Man as he tries to clean up and find the cure to the outbreak of a mutagenic virus that he may have had the part of unleashing on New York. Even though we see classic Spider-Man villains such as Scorpion and Rhino, they've been reduced to test tube cross-species experiments from actual characters with their own motives and personality. And when we're not fighting them, we're just fighting robots. The real big bad behind the whole conflict is himself not strongly fleshed out either, so we're left not really caring about who we're fighting. Despite the weak plot, the game is well enough written and acted, with Spider-Man in particular getting some very good quips in. The story will get you through the game, but it's nothing spectacular. The game doesn't look too great either, with only a handful of distinct environments and none of them with any engaging personality. Even Manhattan, one of the most diverse and active places in the world, dripping with character and personality, is drab and lifeless in this game. This would probably have to do with the game's actual open world, which, except for landmarks like Times Square and the Chrysler Building and stuff like that, barely resembles the city at all. While the game gets a good feel for the height of the city, the length and width of it are absolutely too small. I live in New York, and playing through this game I was not given the impression that Beenox had even attempted to recreate even half of the actual city. The lack of overall city is probably explained by the game's overall structure, though. Even though I've been calling it an open world, the game is structured more like a Zelda game, with an open world existing only to provide a shared world for all of the game's dungeons, where the majority of story and gameplay take place. These dungeons themselves aren't any more engaging than Manhattan, though, all of them easily being described as like a sewer or a factory. With all of the above being said, you might be surprised to hear that the gameplay is actually pretty good. And, well, it should be, considering Beenox pretty much lifted all of it straight from Rocksteady's Batman Arkham Asylum and Arkham City. The game uses the same combat system down to what buttons serve what function, and it's still a fun combat system. Spider-Man, however, lacks all of Batman's gadgets, and thus combat lacks Batman's variety. Also, despite superhuman agility, the combat lacks the fluidity of the Arkham games. It also has the same stealth mechanics, though as Spider-Man can wall crawl over any surface, you can hide almost anywhere. Combined with the stupid AI, there's a lot less challenge to it. Still, Beenox was smart enough to stick to a formula that works. Half the bosses don't stand out much either, basically acting as a more drawn-out combat sequence. And the other half, while more cinematic, boil down to swing around the boss until it opens up its weak point and then do a quick time event. What Spider-Man has that differentiates him from the Caped Crusader is web swinging, and while it's done differently from past Spider-Man games, it's still done well. Swinging through the city is more cinematic than it's ever been, with a pulled-in camera that very nearly puts you in the web shooters and a more automatic one-button system. The swinging feels more weighty, and the sense of momentum you get when you really get into the groove of it all is simply amazing. Swinging from an extremely high point in the city and catching yourself at the last minute and going right back up in an arc is simply, it's simply spectacular. However, this system sacrifices the control and the nuance of the swinging in previous games. You'll still control when to shoot the webs, and you can decide to jump off at any time, but you no longer have to anchor your webs to anything in particular, and you can't stop while swinging and just hang or turn around. Web swinging is still very fun, but where it would previously be a game unto itself, here it is just a mode of transportation. There's also a web rush ability that can automatically zip you to wherever you point Spider-Man, but like the rest of the swinging, it's more watch than do. Despite the game's tiny city, there's still a lot to do, from stopping petty crimes and car chases to taking photos and collecting over 700 pages of comics that are actually readable in the game. The side crimes don't add much to the game except to pad out the length, and once you've played one of each crime, you've pretty much played them all. The collectibles, on the other hand, do unlock some pretty cool things, like the aforementioned readable comics, but being that there are so many of them, it's easy to stop caring after collecting the first 300 or so. In a few short words, The Amazing Spider-Man is a poor man's Batman Arkham City. It's not a bad game, and the swinging still separates it from most other games on the market, but there are better games that can give you the same type of experience. If you're a die-hard Spider-Man fan, you'll be disappointed by the lack of consistency with the other Spider-Man universes. But if you just want to play as Spider-Man and swing around the city, this game should provide a substantial fix. The Amazing Spider-Man gets a 6.5 out of 10.